Welcome to this explainer. If you really stop and look around, the universe feels completely chaotic and entirely unquantifiable at first glance. I mean, from the massive expanse of entire galaxies down to the invisible, buzzing dance of subatomic particles. Reality is just a total mess of extremes. But science is all about finding order in that chaos. So today we're walking through a really masterful lecture by Dr. Kim that lays out the rigorous rules of measurement. We are going to look at exactly how we take this messy, analog world of ours and essentially trap it into perfectly defined numbers, units, and errors.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We're taking a journey from the macro to the micro today. We'll start with the universal measurement language, look at taming the extremes, establish the rules of precision, differentiate between accuracy versus precision, and finally, we'll talk about embracing the unknown.
Starting with Section 1, the universal measurement language. Establishing the rules of the game.
To even begin measuring the universe, we first need to agree on the words we're going to use, right? These are the absolute bedrock of modern science, the 7 fundamental base units of the SI system. You've got the meter for length, the kilogram for mass, the second for time, and so on. Now, a wild bit of trivia here. For over a century, the kilogram was defined by a literal metal cylinder locked in a Parisian vault. But scientists realized it was actually losing mass from getting washed. Insane, right? Because of that, these units were completely redefined recently. Now they're brilliantly anchored to exact unchanging constants of nature, like the speed of light.
And what's so elegant is how from just those 7 simple building blocks springs this incredible mathematical web. We call these derived units. When you multiply mass, length, and time together in a very specific way, you get a Newton, which measures force. If you combine them a little differently, you get a joule for energy, or a Pascal for pressure. Literally everything we measure in the cosmos stems directly from those original base units.
Moving right along to Section 2, Taming the Extremes. Speaking the language of the cosmos.
So, even with the right units in hand, we immediately hit a massive scale problem. Just imagine trying to use the standard mass of the Earth in a daily calculation. You'd have to trace decimal positions or count out a staggering, highly error-prone string of 24 zeros just to figure out how big the thing is. It's a complete nightmare for a working scientist. The clean, incredibly elegant solution to this problem is scientific notation. This system works so well because it physically separates 2 completely different questions our brains naturally want to ask. First, how much? That question is answered by the mantissa, the number between 1 and 10 at the front. It shows us our exact precision. Second, how big? That is answered by the exponent, the power of 10. Scientific notation basically formalizes our natural instincts, making both the precision and the magnitude instantly visible, without any ambiguity whatsoever.
All right, Section 3, the rules of precision, dealing with an imperfect reality.
So we've got our units, and we have a slick way to write massive numbers. But now we have to face the cold, physical reality of our actual tools. Perfect measurement is simply impossible. Dr. Kim uses this great example to ground us. If you grab a common wooden ruler, you might be totally sure the length of something is 22-point-something centimeters. You might even be able to estimate that it's 22.4. But you absolutely cannot read a standard wooden ruler and tell me a block is 22.4072643 centimeters long. There's just no way. In science, we only ever write down the numbers that have actual significance derived from a real measurement.
Let me actually challenge you on this. How many significant figures do you think are in the number 0.00030? Go ahead, take a guess. It's exactly 2, the 3 and that final 0. Why? Because the leading zeros, the ones right after the decimal point, they're really just placeholders telling us the scale. But that trailing 0 at the very end, we only wrote that digit down because our specific tool was precise enough to confirm it is actually a 0 and not a 1 or a 9. It has real meaning.
So the absolutely crucial point here is that when we start doing math with these imperfect measurements, our final answer cannot magically become more precise than our starting data. It's basically the rule of the weakest link. For example, if I multiply 2.5, which has 2 significant figures, by 3.42, which has 3, my calculator is going to spit out 8.55. But I have to round my answer down to 8.6 because my least precise starting measurement, the 2.5, only had 2 significant figures. We can't just invent precision that wasn't there in the laboratory to begin with.
Section 4. Accuracy versus precision. Hitting the target.
Now, we need to talk about defining the actual quality of our measurements, and we've got to be super careful here, because in everyday language, we use two words interchangeably that mean wildly different things in science: accuracy and precision. A number can be highly precise but completely and utterly wrong. Think about this relatable analogy from the lecture, the gold ring dilemma. Suppose you want to sell a gold ring to a friend. Just holding it in your hand, you estimate it's between 10 and 20 grams. That estimate is very likely accurate. It almost certainly contains the true value, but it's not precise at all. It's a huge range. So you go find a digital scale and it reads exactly 17.43 grams. That reading is incredibly precise. It goes to 2 decimal places. But how confident are you that the scale is actually calibrated? Accuracy is how close you are to the true value. Precision is just the reproducibility of the result, how exact the reading itself is.
The classic way to visualize this concept is with a dartboard. If all your darts are clustered really tightly together, but they entirely miss the bullseye, well, that's excellent precision, but terrible accuracy. The thrower did the exact same wrong thing every single time. Conversely, if your darts are spread way out, your precision is poor. But if you average their scattered positions and they center perfectly on the bullseye, that is high accuracy with low precision. Our goal in the lab, obviously, is tight clusters right in the middle of the board.
Which brings us to Section 5, Embracing the Unknown, the ultimate truth of science. This is the final, unavoidable reality of measurement. No matter how good our tools are, no matter how carefully we track our significant figures, there's always an error. We have to track the unknown. We broadly categorize these uncertainties into 2 camps: random and systematic errors. Random errors are just the statistical fluctuations in your tools or the room itself. Maybe a slight breeze hits the scale, or you look at a ruler from a slightly different angle. The beauty of random errors is that you can fight them simply by taking multiple readings and calculating an average. They eventually just cancel each other out. Systematic errors, though, those are much more dangerous. This is a reproducible bias in one direction, like a scale that hasn't been properly zeroed or a thermometer that hasn't reached thermal equilibrium. You could take 1,000,000 measurements and they will all be perfectly wrong in the exact same way. You defeat systematic errors by carefully brainstorming and calibrating before the experiment even begins.
When scientists statistically map out those random errors, they create this beautiful shape known as a bell curve. The width of that curve represents our precision. A really narrow curve means tightly clustered, highly precise measurements. But the distance from the center of our curve to the actual true value line, that represents our accuracy, which is essentially a measure of our systematic error.
So why does all this tedious tracking of decimal points and errors actually matter? Let's drive home the so what factor here. Imagine a theoretical physicist predicts a brand new particle should have a mass of 137. You run a massive billion-dollar experiment and you measure a mass of 141. Do these numbers agree? Have you proved the theory right, or have you just broken physics? Well, the answer entirely depends on your calculated uncertainty. If your error analysis says your measurement is 141 plus or minus 5, then yes, 137 is inside your window. The theory holds up. But if your uncertainty is only plus or minus 1, then no way. 137 is totally outside the range. You've discovered something entirely new.
And that brings us to Dr. Kem's core philosophy on measurement. We cannot test reality without knowing the limits of our own vision. An experimental result without an uncertainty estimate is practically scientifically useless because it makes it impossible to answer whether your result actually agrees with reality.
I want to leave you with this final kind of provocative thought. Everything we build, everything we trust, from the GPS systems guiding our cars down the highway, to the digital scales at the grocery store, to the exact dosage of medicine we take, it's all built on a foundation of calculated, carefully managed uncertainty. If absolute perfection in measurement is a physical impossibility, how confident are you in the exact numbers that govern your daily life? Thanks so much for exploring the rules of reality with me on this explainer. Keep questioning the numbers, and I'll see you next time.